If you are a senior level professional and feeling really frustrated by the stress levels that come with your success, and you've tried everything to get your stress under control, nothing's worked yet, and you're like, ooh, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna have to retire early or change companies or quit my job, but you know you can't because you've got the golden handcuffs, then this video is for you. I'm going to share with you the framework I use with my clients to help them achieve what they want to achieve just without the exhaustion and the angst, the frustrations that often come along with having a lot of responsibility. And, I remember a client who called me and he said, Allison, I really want to work with you now because I've had a birthday. He had, 50 something. And he's like, I figure I have a decade left in my career and I am not willing to repeat what I did for the last decade. I want my last 10, 15 years of my career to be more enjoyable. I want to be able to still have time for vacations while I'm young enough to enjoy them. And I'm not ready to quit. I'm not ready to retire, but I got to fix this. I got to fix my stress. And I said, all right, well, here's what I'm guessing is probably happening. And hopefully you can resonate with this. First thing is you're under constant pressure. Everybody is coming at you, expecting you to solve their problems. You feel like you're a bit of a firefighter all day long, and you're back to back to back meetings, and your days, it just feels like the pressure doesn't stop. And it's really hard to do our best work when we're under constant pressure. Now, that ends up leading to the fact that your priorities get pushed. The days just disappear and you just feel like you aren't getting the right things done. And then you end up taking that home with you. It's like this home and work collide. And I want to be really clear. Like, the people I work with love their work, or at least at some point they did, before they got really stressed and burned out and started to resent it, which isn't funny, but if you know, you know. And so it's like they want to work, right? But there's got to be that perfect balance for you. And for every person, it's different. So, like, love the work, but also have that time. And sometimes it shows up for, like, you can't take a vacation, or taking a vacation, it's like it takes 4 or 5 days for you to actually come down and relax. And then, it's too stressful going, so you don't even want to take it. Or I remember I was in a workshop with a group of CEOs, and one of the fellows shared, he said, like, look, I come home at night. I'm so exhausted from dealing with everything that's going on. And he said he felt awful because his daughter wants help with her homework, and he doesn't have enough bandwidth left to help her. Right? So that's an example of how home and work collide, even with the best intentions and even when we love our work. I mean, it's one thing if you can just turn it off at 5 o'clock and don't think about it till the next day. Most people in a senior level role are not doing that. Okay? So what do we do with this? Well, we're going to fix it. We've got to ease the pressure. We've got to reclaim your work days. And my approach is not about necessarily balance, but it's you've like go all in and be 100% there when you're at work and 100% there when you're in relax mode, you're at home, you're with the people who you love. And that focused energy of just being like, this is what I'm going to do right now is so critical to having a really fulfilling, beautiful home life and a really fulfilling and beautiful, successful career. So how do we do that? Well, not surprising, I have an answer. All right, so there is a path here that I find needs to happen. So if we start looking in at this, how do we ease the pressure? The first piece is to change your relationship with stress. Not all stress is created equally. Not all stress is bad for you. Not all stress is inevitable. There is a way that we can shift how you're approaching all of the challenges that are going on. Because often what happens is we get this belief that if we can get rid of some problems, if we can, hire another person, if we can get through this next project, if we can do X, then Y will be happier, right? Thinking. I call it when X, then Y thinking. And so if we can really take control of your relationship with stress, if we can rewrite your stress story, we can start to ease the pressure and find a path forward for you. The next thing we've got to do is we've got to filter out the noise. And what I mean by noise is the distractions in our day-to-day. It can be, our confidence, our frustrations, everything we're thinking, everybody else's expectations, how we've been taught. Like, here's the thing. If you were taught to work a certain way when you were in your early 20s or in your early 30s, chances are, if you're in your more senior career level, right, you're in your late 40s, 50s, even in your 60s, what worked back then is not going to work now. And so, but what I've noticed with a lot of my clients is like, well, you know what, I should just be able to work till midnight and get it all done. Well, no, because you need some sleep. And you know what? You deserve some sleep too. So this is like just filtering out some of those beliefs and a lot of the stuff that will create your destructive stress. Okay. The next piece is find simple solutions faster. Problem solving, I think that is like the number one most important skill. Like, we talk about communication and all of that. I think it's problem solving. I think that is what, not only for you to have a systematic way to problem solve, but to be sure your team is solving their own problems. Wouldn't that be nice if they could be as strong at solving problems as you are? But really often what it boils down to is one simple solution for each of the issues that we're dealing with. And we tend to make it complicated because we're looking at all the pressure instead of individual things. So I have a really cool framework that teaches people how to do that. But just be thinking like, maybe it's easier to solve these issues that I'm having than I think it is. Generally it is. So once we've got that done, so we've eased the pressure, now you've got a bit of bandwidth in your day-to-day, you've got the resources to go, okay, how do I take control of my work days? How do I get a hold of this? And what's the simple solutions that I can implement to actually feel like I'm getting my work done? And by the way, in the desired hours that you want to get it done. So if you love working Saturday morning, I know I wrote a book called Take Back Your Weekends, but I'll tell you, it doesn't matter. If you are working on a Saturday morning because you love it, that's very different than I have to work on a Saturday morning because everything else is off the rails during the week and I have no choice. Two totally different things. So the first thing we do when we get into this phase of the program is we stop the repeating stressors. There are things that are driving you batty every day that you're probably just so used to, you don't even realize how they're nagging away at you. And so we start there and we put one simple solution in for each one of those little pieces of the puzzle. And slowly but surely, the compound, and actually quite quickly, not necessarily slowly, the compounding impact of that is significant. Okay. The next thing is we've got to get you prime workflows, focused work blocks where you actually get to use the full brilliance that you have and you can not be interrupted during that time. And often, like, leaders will say to me, I can't, I've got to be there for my team. I've got to be there. Everybody needs me. They're knocking on my door, even if I close it or I put an appointment into my calendar. And I'm like, you know what? I have seen people transform their lives because they just started protecting some prime work blocks, not just for themselves, but for the people on their team. So here's a little trick about this. First thing I'd ask you to do is just think, okay, this week, how many, or maybe you do an average of the last couple weeks, how many nights did I work in for how many hours? How many weekend days or how many early morning time slots did I have to work outside of my desired working hours that I wanted to get caught up? And just add that up. So if you're working 3 hours on a Saturday morning, Well, we have a 3-hour math problem that we have to figure out during the week. That's what I'm talking about. It's not like you can't ever have another meeting or another distraction, but we've got to protect enough prime working time for you that you can get your work done. And there's so many simple strategies you can use in that to make it happen. Now, the next piece, you may think, this is something I did early in my career. I figured out how I was going to track and manage my to-do list. And I get it because we can take it for granted. But so often I'm working with people who do not have a way to track everything they've got to get done in a way that works for them and they trust it. And here's the clue that your system needs an update or a tweak. If you go to bed at night and your head hits the pillow and it's the first time you have sort of a clear mind and all of a sudden you start going, oh shoot, I forgot to insert task here. I forgot to call so-and-so. I forgot to send an email. I forgot to look at that proposal. I forgot to hire a speaker for my next big conference. Hint, hint. Teasing, but not teasing. That leads me to believe that there's something we need to tweak with how you are tracking the tasks that are happening in your day-to-day. All right, is this resonating? You can see how it's really actually quite simple to get through it. It's just these are the things we have to focus on. The next last bit of it is how do we deal with this colliding home and work? How do we give you the freedom and get rid of the guilt? I remember one of my coaching clients, the first 5 minutes we were chatting, she just broke down and cried. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I feel so overwhelmed. I feel so guilty because I know the work is piling up when I'm with my family, but my family needs me. But when I'm with them, I know the work is piling up. And she's like, I just can't get out of this vicious cycle. And I'm like, yeah, that's a problem. Because if we're not totally enjoying our downtime away from work, we may as well be working. And if we're not totally working, but we're thinking about, whatever's going on in our personal life, like we're not going to do our best work. And so there are a lot of really simple solutions you can implement that just make it so easy to be like, no, I'm going to do this right now. This is where my focus is going to be. But what's interesting in this framework is that if you haven't eased the pressure, if you haven't reclaimed your work days, it makes it almost impossible to really truly go all in at home and at work and to find that perfect for you balance. So the way I do this with my client is we start with building out what does your ideal look like? What's your bliss list? I have one client who we were able to get her every Friday afternoon off in the summers, and she didn't know what to put in that time slot because she'd forgotten who she was, right? 20 years ago before, her kids were grown and she, she just forgot what she liked to do. So we created a bliss list. It's a really simple thing to do. So we can make a list. I do that with most of my clients. Then we have you sit down and go, okay, what is my ideal day, week, month, and year? And there are reasons we want to choose each because, a week is different than, I won't get into that right now, but get it out on paper so we know what we're aiming for. And none of it, by the way, I have never seen somebody's ideal day, week, month, year who has built a career and enjoys their career but is just frustrated with the stress levels. I've never actually seen it to a point where we can't make it happen. It's kind of cool. But we can't make it happen if we don't know what you're aiming for. And then we create strategies, and they're usually very simple solutions that we put in place so that we match your ideal to your reality. And once we've got that figured out, it's like, what are your standards and how are you going to stick to them? How are you going to get everybody on board that this is how I operate? This is how my life is now. And this framework, it can happen really quickly. It can happen over a long period of time. Minimum of, if I were doing with the group, I would say this is a 12-week program, right? If I was doing it with you individually, same thing. I mean, 90 days, we can get through the whole process. But a lot of my clients, we end up working together for 6 months to really solidify it. And some of them then go on a maintenance program to be sure that they're sticking with their standards. And, as we progress, we want to tweak, and then we work with their teams to get them on side. And so that everybody's kind of living their best life and doing their best work without burning out. And so that's what I mean by say achieve it all without the angst. So if there's something in here that really resonated for you, if there's a piece of the puzzle that really makes sense, then reach out to me. Send me a DM and send me an email. I can give you my email. I'll go one more. Allison@AllisonGraham.com. This is the process I use with my clients. So if you want to have a quick, 10, 15-minute call just to say, hey, how would this work for me? Then let's do that. And otherwise, I will, I hope that got you tweaking and just thinking about how could I maybe redesign my life? How could I use those resources I have to do, to think, to feel, to be each and every day, and rewrite my stress story so that I don't repeat my stress levels from the last decade for the next decade. That's my hope for you. So until we have a chance to chat, may you stress less, do more, and be happier while you do it.